The cold wind bit at my skin as I stood at the edge of the grand iron gates of the mansion, the place where I once grew up, yet never truly belonged. I had returned to this estate, my father's estate, against my better judgment. I wasn't even sure what I was searching for, what I expected to find, but the pull of it was undeniable. The funeral had come and gone. The guests had all filed into the house, their murmurs fading into the background like the echoes of a life I had distanced myself from for so long. And yet here I was, still feeling tethered to this place, still longing for something, even though I knew it would never be mine. Not in the way I had always hoped. The mansion loomed before me, its towering presence casting a long shadow across the garden. The once pristine grounds now felt sterile, as though even the trees were mourning my father's passing. I stood there, for a long moment, allowing the weight of the memories to crash over me. I had spent his last days by his side, tending to him, caring for him when no one else would. James, my older brother, had been too busy with his own life to care about our father's final moments. Alyssa, my younger sister, was too preoccupied with her perfect life to spare a single thought for him. But I, Rachel Whitmore, the forgotten daughter, had come back when no one else would. The wind picked up, tugging at the edges of my black coat, but I didn't move. The world around me seemed frozen in time, as though the estate had been waiting for me, just as I had been waiting for this moment. What was I hoping for today? Closure? Validation? Maybe, just maybe, I wanted to feel like I mattered to him, that the years I spent caring for him weren't in vain, that I had earned a piece of his love before he slipped away. But I knew better than to expect anything from this family. I had been out of the loop for years, estranged by choice, pushed aside by everyone. And today would be no different. I pushed. The gate open, its creak echoing in the quiet, and made my way toward the front door. As I stepped inside, the house greeted me with an unnatural stillness, as if the walls were holding their breath, waiting for something. The scent of polished wood and old leather filled the air, familiar yet cold. It was a place I had once called home, but now it felt like a mausoleum for everything I had lost. Inside. The noise from the gathering family members was muted, low. Conversations blending with the clink of glasses and the muffled hum of artificial mourning. Could feel their eyes on me, the heavy silence that followed my entrance. The stares from those who once claimed to care. James was the first to spot me. He stood in a corner, dressed in an immaculate suit, his expression a mask of indifference. His eyes flicked over me once, a barely perceptible nod. Then back to the conversation he was having with some of their business associates, as if I was a non-entity, just a shadow in the room. Alyssa, always the prim and proper one, didn't even spare me a glance. She stood with her back straight, her designer dress hugging her frame like a second skin. Her smile was plastered on, but I saw the faint glimmer of triumph in her eyes. She had always been the favorite, the one who could do no wrong in our father's eyes. Even when I was the one who stayed, the one who helped, it was never enough. To earn a seat at their table, I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat and pushed forward into the family room. The conversation continued around me as if I were invisible. No one acknowledged my presence. No one seemed to care. Then the familiar sound of a spoon tapping against a glass rang through the room. Mr. Harris, the family lawyer, stood at the front of the room, his professional demeanor commanding attention. His gray hair was neatly combed, his sharp suit impeccable. He held a glass of water in one hand, tapping it lightly with the spoon to gather the room's attention. "Everyone," he began, his voice smooth and authoritative. "Thank you for being here today. I know emotions are heavy, and I appreciate your time. Before we conclude today's proceedings, as per Mr. Whitmore's final instructions, I will now read his will." My heart skipped a beat. My father's will. The moment I had been dreading. The moment that would finally tell me whether my existence in his life had mattered. Whether the years I had spent caring for him, watching him slowly slip away, had made a difference. I held my breath as Mr. Harris opened the brown leather folder. The rustling of paper seemed amplified in the stillness of the room. The tension was thick, suffocating. And I could feel the weight of everyone's expectations bearing down on me. I, Jonathan Whitmore, being of sound mind and body. I closed my eyes for a brief second, praying that this time he would remember me. To my son, James Whitmore, I leave the ownership of Whitmore & Co., my 45% share, including all residual rights and profits. I heard James's quiet, self-satisfied chuckle. Of course, he always got what he wanted. To my daughter, Alyssa Whitmore, I leave the estate in upstate New York, including all furnishings, vehicles, and securities attached to the property. Alyssa's lips curled into a smile, her eyes gleaming with delight. She had one. Again, I waited, my fingers gripping the edge of the chair beneath me. The room was silent now. The last page. My name. I needed to hear my name. Mr. Harris cleared his throat and looked up at me. That closed the contents of the will. My stomach dropped. I blinked rapidly, trying to hold back the tears, but I couldn't stop the sting that shot through me. That's it. My voice was louder than I meant it to be. That's all. All eyes turned toward me. Some were shocked. Some were entertained. But all of them were watching, waiting to see what I would do. There must be a mistake. I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. I took care of him. I was there when no one else was. Don't you see he told me he promised me. I'm sorry, Miss Whitmore, Mr. Harris said softly, his voice filled with sympathy. This is what was signed and sealed. The will is final. I laughed, the sound hollow. So I get nothing, not even a mention. James crossed his arms, his smirk widening as he took a step forward. Maybe Dad didn't appreciate traitors who ran off and came back just to play nurse. Alyssa, standing just behind him, added with a sugary sweetness that made my blood boil. You always wanted more than you gave, Rachel. The words hit me harder than I wanted to admit. I clenched my fists, my nails biting into my palms, but I refused to let the tears fall. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Without a word, I turned to leave, my heart pounding in my chest. Miss Whitmore. Mr. Harris called after me. I stopped, my breath catching in my throat. What now? Would you mind staying for a moment? His voice was quieter now, more urgent. I need to speak with you privately. I turned back, confusion and hope swirling inside me, unsure of what this moment would bring. My footsteps echoed through the empty hallway as I followed Mr. Harris into the side room. The air seemed thicker here, heavier with unspoken words and unseen tensions. A corner of my mind wondered if this was some sort of cruel joke, but the rest of me, the part that had spent years hoping for a sliver of recognition, dared to feel something else, hope. I swallowed hard, my pulse quickening as Mr. Harris turned toward me. In his hands was a small black envelope, almost inconspicuous in its simplicity. My heart leaped as he handed it to me. Your father left this for you. He instructed that it only be opened after the will was read. I barely heard the words as they escaped his lips. My hands reached out instinctively, trembling as I took the envelope. It felt cold, foreign in my hands. I could feel my father's presence in that small, insignificant object. The handwriting on the front, scratched hurriedly in ink, was unmistakable. Rachel, my name, my father's name. The two of us connected in some small way that transcended the past, the hurt. The silence stopped. My fingers brushed over the familiar script. I wanted to scream, to demand answers. To know why, after all these years, he hadn't come back to me sooner. Why now? Why after everything? But I could not. I stood frozen, the envelope weighing heavily in my hands. My mind was spinning, caught between disbelief and an overwhelming sense of loss, he said. Mr. Harris's voice was calm, almost distant. The truth isn't always what's written in ink. The words fell like a hammer. My father's truth. What did that mean? What? Was the truth that had been buried all these years? I nodded slowly, the confusion clouding my thoughts. But I couldn't question him. Not yet. Thank you, I whispered, the words catching in my throat. They sounded hollow, as if I were speaking through a fog. Mr. Harris gave a small nod before. Stepping back, the door closed behind me with a soft click, and the weight of the room seemed to lift, leaving me to stand there in the cold. Staring at the small black envelope in my hand, my fingers shook, and for a long moment I simply stood, there uncertain of what to do next. The wind had picked up outside, biting at my skin as I made my way to the car. It seemed as though the world outside had shifted somehow, the stillness pressing against me. For the first time in hours, the silence felt like something I could breathe into. I was no longer trapped in the moment I had just left. It's a funeral. The cold family members, the empty roomette, all seemed far away now. There was something waiting for me, something in that envelope that held the key to everything I'd been searching for. I sat in my car, the engine running but unmoving, staring out at the world as the minutes ticked by. It was as if time had decided to freeze, locking me in place. The air was thick with anticipation, and yet I couldn't bring myself to open the envelope just yet. My hands shook, and I gripped the envelope tightly. Unsure of what I would find, unsure if I was even ready to face it, but I had to know. I had to know if this could be the redemption I had been craving for years. Finally, I exhaled, wiping the dampness from my palms before carefully peeling open the envelope. The wax seal cracked open with a soft pop, and I pulled out a single sheet of paper. The weight of it seemed to ground me, and as I unfolded it, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. It was a letter. His letter. My father's handwriting jumped off the page as if he were sitting right beside me. His voice, rising from the paper, "My Rachel, if you're reading this, then you already know how the world sees things and how I chose to let them see. I'm sorry, not for the way it looks, but for not warning you." I needed them to believe what they heard in that room. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I read the first few lines. The world saw things a certain way. My father had decided, and yet here he was acknowledging it. It was almost too much to bear the knowledge that, despite everything, despite the years of separation and bitterness, he had still thought of me. He had known, but you and I, we know the truth. His words hit harder than I expected. The truth. What truth? What had been hidden all these years? What had he kept from me? The pieces of this puzzle were starting to fit together in ways that terrified me. In the drawer beneath my old vinyl collection, the blue one with the torn spinule, find the real will. My final one, the one no one else knows about. The public version was necessary. For now, I stopped. The real will, my father had kept a secret will. Why? What had been hidden? Why had he needed to deceive everyone, including me? Trust Harris. He'll help you once you have it. But you must act quickly. I could hear my father's voice in my mind, urging me forward. I could feel him just a step behind me, guiding me even now. But why? What had he planned for me, and why had he waited until now to reveal it? I'm proud of you more than I ever told you aloud. You came back when it mattered. And that matters more than titles or money. The words were like a balm on a wound I hadn't known was still bleeding. Proud of me. My father had never said those words to me, not once. But here they were in ink, written just for me. I pressed my hand to my chest, feeling the ache of it, the relief, the bittersweet comfort of knowing that he had acknowledged me. Finally, I love you. Dad. I closed my eyes, letting the tears come without shame. He loved me. Loved me all along. I had never doubted that, but the emptiness of the years had forced me to question everything. Now, this letter, these words, gave me something I hadn't even known I was searching for. I read it again and then again. Each time, the message sank deeper into my soul. The years of estrangement, the isolation, the silence, they had all been for a reason. There had been a plan, a purpose I had not understood until now. I wiped my eyes, the letter still clenched in my hands. I didn't know what came next, but I knew I couldn't wait any longer. My father's words had lit a fire in me that had long been dormant, and I knew what I had to do. I started the car, the engine humming to life beneath me. The world outside had shifted again, as if in response to my decision. His apartment was only 20 minutes away. The key to everything was within reach. For the first time in years, I felt something stir inside me. Something more than anger. Something more than grief. Something like life itself. I drove the city streets blurring past me, my heart racing. The past felt far behind me, and yet the weight of the letter in my pocket made everything feel close again. The apartment building loomed ahead, his apartment, my father's sanctuary. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what I might find there. I didn't know what I would uncover when I walked through that door. But for the first time in a long while, I was ready to find out. I parked outside his apartment, the keys still warm in my hand. The familiar scent of old wood and faint aftershave filled the air as I stepped inside, my pulse quickening with each step. I ran up the stairs, the letter clutched tightly as though it would vanish if I let go. I headed straight for the vinyl shelf, my fingers trembling as I searched beneath the blue album with the torn spine. Nothing. I checked again, my frustration mounting. Then I felt a tan, almost invisible bottom. I pried it open, revealing a black folder. Inside, a handwritten will he had remembered. The next morning, I sat across from Mr. Harris, my hands clammy as he read the handwritten will. His eyes widened with surprise. This ... This could change everything, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Can it be executed? I asked, my voice sharp with urgency. It will take time, he said. Your siblings will fight you every step of the way. I don't care about their resistance, I snapped. I just want what he left me. Harris paused, his expression serious. We need to keep this quiet until we file. They catch wind of it, they'll destroy you. The next morning, I sat across from Mr. Harris in his office, the air thick with tension. The old leather chair creaked under my weight, but I barely noticed. My hands were still shaking from the night before. The paper I had found in my father's apartment pressed tightly in my pocket. I had read it over and over, each word a dagger that cut deeper into the years of silence. But now, here I was, waiting for answers. Mr. Harris sat at his desk, a professional mask in place. His glasses rested low on his nose as he scanned the handwritten will. His face remained expressionless, his eyes flickering as he moved from line to line. The quiet hum of the office felt like an intrusion to my racing thoughts. I watched him carefully, hoping for something, anything that would tell me this wasn't another cruel trick. That my father had truly remembered me. When he finally lowered the paper, I saw it, the surprise in his eyes. It was a fleeting expression, quickly masked by his usual calm demeanor, but it was enough to make my heart skip a beat. This could change everything, he said quietly, almost to himself. His voice was filled with a mix of disbelief and awe, as if he couldn't quite comprehend the magnitude of what he was reading. I leaned forward, my heart hammering in my chest. Can it be executed? The words felt like a lifeline. I needed something to hold on to, something to pull me out of the chaos that had defined the past few days. Mr. Harris paused, carefully placing the will down on the desk, his fingers brushing the edges of the paper as though it were fragile. He looked up at me, his expression grave. It will take time, he said slowly, but it's not impossible. The resistance from your siblings will be inevitable. My stomach twisted at the mention of James and Alyssa, the very people who had pushed me aside for years, who had never once looked back, would now stand between me and what my father had left me. It was almost laughable, the irony of it all. They had always been the golden children, the ones who could do no wrong. And yet, here I was, standing in front of Mr. Harris, holding the key to everything I had ever wanted. And it was all because my father had finally seen me for who I was. I don't care about their resistance, I said bitterly, the words escaping before I could stop them. The anger I had been holding in for so long bubbled to the surface. I just want what he left me. I could feel the weight of the statement as it hung in the air between us. The truth of it, raw and unfiltered, settled deep in my chest. My father had left me something real, and I would not let anyone take that from me. And Alyssa, not this time, Mr. Harris, nodded slowly, his gaze unwavering. He had always been a professional, but today there was something else in his eyes. Recognition of the battle that was about to unfold. He knew as well as I did that this would not be easy. But he also knew that there was no turning back now. We need to keep this quiet until we file, he said, his voice low and serious. If they find out about this, they will fight you every step of the way. And once they know what you've found, they'll stop at nothing to discredit you. I clenched my fists in my lap, trying to keep my composure. Mr. Harris was right. James and Alyssa would not hesitate to do whatever it took to make sure I didn't get a single thing from my father's estate. They were ruthless, driven by greed, and they would use every tool at their disposal to bury me. I understand, I said, my voice steady, but inside my mind was racing. How long could I keep this secret? How long before they started to notice? Something was off. They wouldn't just lie down and let me take what was rightfully mine. They would fight dirty. They always had. Mr. Harris leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping thoughtfully on the armrest. His expression was unreadable, but I could sense the tension in his body. He had been in this business long enough to know how these things played out. He knew the dirty tricks that would be used against me. But I also knew something else. He was on my side. You need to be prepared for the worst, he said, his tone firm. Once we file, they will not let this go without a fight. And they will try to ruin you. Not just legally, but personally. They'll bring up every mistake you've ever made. They'll try to paint you as unstable, as a liability. You have to be ready for that. I nodded, the weight of his words sinking in. I had been through worse. I had survived worse. The estrangement, the guilt, the years of being the outsider. This was just another battle, and I wasn't going to back down now. I'm ready, I said, my voice stronger this time. I had been through hell before, and I wasn't about to let my siblings win. Not now, not ever, Mr. Harris studied me for a moment, as though weighing my resolve. Then, with a single nod, he stood and moved to a filing cabinet at the side of the room. He opened the drawer, rifling through the papers inside before pulling out a thick folder. He set it in front of me with a quiet sigh. Here's what we need to do, he said. I'll start the paperwork and gather the necessary documents. We'll need to keep this under wraps for as long as possible, but we'll file as soon as we can. In the meantime, we'll need to find a safe place for you, somewhere they can't find you easily. You need to be out of sight until we have everything in place. I looked at the folder in front of me, my heart pounding. This was it. The beginning of the fight I had been waiting for was all coming together, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be no victory without a price. I would have to sacrifice more than I ever imagined. I'll do whatever it takes, I said, my voice low and steady. I won't let them take this from me. Mr. Harris gave me a small, reassuring smile. Good. You'll need every ounce of that determination. They won't go down easily, but neither will you. Over the next few days, the whirlwind of paperwork, legal jargon, and whispered conversations took over my life. The once quiet hours in my apartment were now filled with constant meetings, phone calls, and strategy sessions with Mr. Harris. The reality of the battle ahead settled in, and I began to prepare myself for what was to come. I couldn't escape the feeling that time was running out. Every moment I spent in this limbo felt like a ticking clock, counting down to the inevitable explosion that would come when James and Alyssa learned of the will. They wouldn't give up without a fight, and I would be ready for them. But no matter how hard I tried to prepare, nothing could shake the fear that gripped me. Fear of losing everything. Fear of being torn apart by my own family. Fear of being betrayed once again. As the days passed, I knew that the real battle was only just beginning. And no matter how much I braced myself, no matter how much my heart, the truth remained clear. This would not be easy, and I would have to fight with everything I had to win. Days passed in silence, but I could feel the tension building. The calm before the storm. Every conversation, every phone call, felt like a fleeting moment of peace, a false sense of security. I knew it wouldn't last. The battle wasn't over, not by a long shot. It was just waiting to erupt, and then it came. I sat in my apartment one evening, staring blankly at the wall, the weight of the past few days pressing on me. The soft glow of the desk lamp illuminated the papers scattered in front of me, documents, legal jargon, the slow march toward the inevitable. My eyes were tired, but I couldn't afford to rest. There was too much at stake. Suddenly, the sound of my phone vibrating on the table broke the silence. I glanced down at the screen, half expecting it to be Harris with an update. Instead, the email notification caught my attention. It's a simple subject line: petition to contest the will. My breath caught in my throat. The words on the screen blurred for a moment as my mind raced. I clicked the email open, my heart pounding in my chest. The petition was there, plain as day. James and Alyssa had filed it, officially contesting the will. The accusation was simple but devastating. They were claiming that I had forged the will. They were accusing me of mental instability, of manipulating my father's final wishes. The words jumped off the page, and I could feel my blood run cold. It was a tactic they had used before, an underhanded move to tear me down, to cast doubt on my character. The siblings who had always been protected, who had always been seen as the golden children, were now turning the tables. They were willing to do anything, say anything, to make sure I didn't get what my father had left me. I felt a sickening knot form in my stomach. It wasn't enough that they had taken everything else from me. Now they were trying to erase me completely. I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed Harris's number. The call rang twice before he picked up. "Mr. Harris," I said, my voice shaky but determined. "They're going to smear me." "They will," he replied calmly, as though he had been expecting this. "But we've prepared for this." You knew it was coming. His words were like a lifeline. But they didn't stop the rage bubbling up inside me. "They're calling me crazy," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "They're saying I forged it. They're trying to ruin me." "I know," Harris said, his tone steady. "And they will fight you with everything they've got." "But we have evidence, Rachel. We have the handwritten will, the timeline, the witnesses." "This is just their opening move. They're trying to intimidate you, to break you down before we even get to court." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Harris's calmness was a balm, but I could still feel the storm brewing. "So what do we do now?" "We stick to the plan," he said firmly. "We gather everything we need. We keep moving forward. They'll try to discredit you, but we'll hit them back with facts." The war had officially begun. The first strike had been made, and it was a low blow, aimed squarely at my reputation. But Harris was right. This was only the beginning. Squall. They were going to try to drag me through the mud to make me doubt myself, to make everyone else doubt me. But I wasn't going to let them win. Not this time. I ended the call with Harris, my mind racing, my emotions raw. I had always known this fight wouldn't be easy, but now, with the gloves off, I could feel the weight of the battle ahead. James and Alyssa would stop at nothing to protect their inheritance. But they had underestimated one thing. I was still my father's daughter, and I had nothing left to lose. It was time to fight back. Don't miss out. Subscribe now and stay updated on the journey ahead.